Ryan Nobles is back on the line. Hopefully we have a better connection. We're talking about the NFL, the situation with protesting, the flag, what the decision was. And I mentioned as we went to break there, Roger Goodell coming out yesterday saying that basically we tried to please all sides, everybody who was involved. He said we want to be respectful of the national anthem. We want people to stand. We've been very sensitive on making sure that we give players choice. But we do believe that the moment is an important moment and one that we are going to focus on. So basically, the league comes out and says you must stand.
We've lost too much money.
If you don't want to stand, if you don't want to stand, stay in the tunnel, stay in the locker room. If you violate this, the team will be fined. Ryan, I find it interesting that Chris Johnson, of now who's in charge of the New York Jets, comes out and says, listen, we're not going to fine players. I find that interesting because obviously Woody Johnson's involvement as owner of the Jets, and he's, Trump's, ambassador to the United Kingdom. I'm surprised the Jets didn't side more on the respect for the flag issue.
Well, I think you're going to see this, it's going to go from city to city as to how people act as it relates to this, because it's such a divisive issue. And I think in a city like New York City, with a large African-American population, a large African-American base, a more liberal or progressive city, I think you're going to see those teams back the players' right to protest. And I think maybe in cities that are a little less progressive, that are a little more conservative, that are a little more in Trump country, that maybe you'll see the owners, enforce this policy a little bit more. But I think that's ultimately the problem, right? That they haven't cleared this issue up in any way, shape, or form. And I was thinking about this morning, and I think the thing that what bothers people so much about this particular issue is that you felt like you could go watch a football game and not have to think about politics for 4 hours.
I know. That's the worst part.
And the thing about this is there's really no middle ground on this issue. You either support someone's right to protest in any form that they want, or you feel like it's never acceptable to kneel or disrespect the flag and disrespect the people carrying it. And I think that's why people are uncomfortable with that. I think that's why people feel that's why the NFL is in such a precarious situation here, because it's really no win. There aren't very many people who look at this issue and think, well, I see both sides to this, and that's what they're trying to accomplish here. I just don't know if it's possible.
I think it's too little too late at this point. If they had done this initiative last year early on, nip it in the bud, even when Kaepernick was doing it 2 years ago, it may have had more of an impact, but now I don't know.
I do say this. This is the one caveat I'll put. They did throw a big ton of money, I think $80 million, towards social justice issues, and that they're going to focus on social justice issues. And perhaps, the ultimate goal, Colin Kaepernick's ultimate goal, was to create a conversation around this issue. And if he succeeds in doing that, and if you look at each one of these cities, if an NFL owner, and I think that this is probably what Roger Goodell has done, is he's punted this, pun intended, to his ownership. And I think each ownership group in every city is going to have to sit down with the players who they feel might be inclined to protest and say, what can we do? What type of social justice action can we take as a team, as an organization, that will make you feel comfortable that you don't need to do this very public form of protest? So in each one of these cities, if an owner decides to take his share of that $80 million and invest it in a youth program, or invest it in some sort of police community relations or something along those lines, maybe then it turns into something positive. But the problem with that is you've got 32 teams and 32 different solutions to this problem. You're bound to run into something that just is untenable and doesn't work. And if one team screws it up, the whole league suffers.
Yeah, unfortunately, I don't think this solved anything. I just want to make a quick note on the Jets. I found it interesting, again, that Chris Johnson came out and said what he said. The Jets, based on my memory, and I did find reports backing this up today, have not had a player kneel in protest for the national anthem. So I found it was interesting that they were the first group to come out. I know you talked about the diversity in New York City. I do think that's important. I almost want to say this as well. I want the players to stand. I do. And I know people get very offended by this. I totally understand it. Ryan, this gets to the point of what you were saying about it's difficult to be in a situation for most people to say, well, I understand both sides. Yeah. I think I'm in that boat as well, but I just want to say this. I do think there will come a time when we will look back on this and say, the players were upset about something. They knelt, many of them, with their hand over their chest during the anthem as a sign of protest. There are a lot of worse, more despicable, more insulting, disrespectful ways that you can protest. Again, I don't love it. I'm just saying, I think, 5 years, 2 years, 10 years, we look back on this and go, man, everybody got in an outrage about this when what they did was actually, they did show some respect, and they were upset about it, and they wanted to make their voices heard. And
I'm just going to say this, too, and kind of broadly. I mean, I've been to, dozens and dozens and dozens of professional sporting events, and I can tell you that it is not as if when the national anthem starts that everyone is sitting there with rapturous attention. Not every single person takes off their hat. Not every single person stands. Not every single person stops drinking their beer or pays attention to the fact that this is taking place. The idea that somehow the average NFL fan is somehow, stops everything they're doing to honor the flag, I think is laughable and is not true. Honestly, from my perspective at the sporting events that I've been to, the only time you truly see everyone stand and truly pay respect towards someone is when they do those things where they honor someone from the military who is back and is at the game. And I always find that exciting when you see. So, it's a little disingenuous. And I just think that, I think perhaps the positive thing about this is we're talking about these issues that Colin Kaepernick raised. We're talking about the relationship between African Americans and the police community. I think that's important. And I also think we're talking about respect for the flag. So, in both respects, I think people are looking at this in a different perspective than maybe they did before.
Absolutely. Unfortunately, we're out of time with Ryan. We've got to let him go. I something he mentioned, though, I did want to take note of. The Comets this season started a Hometown Heroes recognition where during the game they would recognize a member of our armed services. They would give them a nice seat for the game. And it was a great tribute. I hope they continue it. But Ryan's right. Everybody, not that at the odd, half of the audience is not standing for the anthem. I'm just saying some of the loudest cheers you would hear was when they would honor a veteran, and that's a great thing. Ryan, thanks so much. Enjoy your weekend. I hope you get to enjoy it with the family.
You know what? I don't think Bill needs to come back. You guys have got to take care of.
I'll tell him he said so.